Like all great stories, ours begins, as it should, in a Walmart in 2007. It's December. Your 10-year-old ass just walked into your local Walmart Supercenter with mommy and daddy because that's just what you did back then. As you're nearing the years where you're about to become too cool for literally anything, that's when you see it. Amongst all the hot toys displayed for Christmas, for some reason in the lawn and garden section, you see just about the coolest thing you've ever laid eyes on. At first you think it's Guitar Hero, that new hotness everyone's been talking about for a couple of years now. But you notice something different. This game's got these 4 big old drum pads and a much sleeker, nicer guitar than the competitors. That's right, kiddos, we're talking about Rock Band. You spank those bad boys in next week for the whole shopping trip, and then you realize,
Mom, I gotta have it.
It turns out though, they've already bought your Christmas present, so you're boned. Until summer 2008, it's your birthday. You roll on up to the GameStop with the fam to pick up one of those big blue-ass new special edition boxes, and son, you're about to have the best gosh darn time of your life. I got Rock Band Special Edition for the PlayStation 2 that year, and for Christmas I ended up getting Rock Band 2. I have, admittedly, a huge nostalgia for these games, and while the first 2 games were the only 2 of the series I had as a kid, I must have put an incredible number of hours into them. Recently, I've been going back to check them out again, and guess what? That is still insane fun even today. Chances are, if you're here right now, you already know that, and this needs no introduction. But for those of you who haven't seen one of these plastic guitars before, well, let me explain. Rock Band, like Guitar Hero before it, is a rhythm game where you play along to tracks using these instrument peripherals. Each song has tracks of colored notes that roll at you as you're trying to play along using your instrument. The games have tracks from all genres of rock and roll, and they're pretty easy to pick up and play but hard to master, so there's a lot of replayability between all of the different tracks, the DLC you can buy, the different instruments, and also the people that you play it with. These games have a pretty storied history, but I'm only going to hit the main titles in the line. Now, both Rock Band and the original first 2 Guitar Heroes were developed by Harmonix. Harmonix was known early on for quirky rhythm games, something like Frequency or Amplitude. They were approached by Red Octane, a company that was really only known for making DDR mats at the time. Red Octane wanted to produce a guitar controller for the United States to match something like the Guitar Freaks game in Japan. Harmonix took on the project, but getting distribution proved to be pretty difficult, as an expensive and required bulky controller was going to be a really hard sell to most companies. Their thought process was like, who's really going to be interested in buying something that's so expensive that they have to find a place for in their house? As it turns out, everyone and their meemaws wanted their hands on this contraption. So many people wanted to f***ing shred to some bozo's cover of Iron Man that Guitar Hero 1 sold like $45 million worth of units in 2005 alone. Harmonix quickly went to work on Guitar Hero 2 for a 2006 release, only just before they had to get a no-custody divorce with Red Octane as they were being married off to Activision, who would then hand the Guitar Hero series over to Neversoft to be developed. But Harmonix were a couple of whole notes ahead of the competition. They were already working on what would become Rock Band in early 2006. Harmonix would be picked up by EA Games, and the first Rock Band would be published under the new MTV Games label. Oh, you know, just famous little indie video game developer, MTV. Rock Band had pretty stiff competition on its release in Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Thor, because some people consider that the best of the Guitar Hero series. But Rock Band, though, felt way more advanced right out of the gate than Guitar Hero 3 did. With the hugely appealing drums and the microphone for karaoke-like gameplay, they single-handedly killed the name for the SingStar games, while also introducing a new demographic into the rhythm game genre. What was once a single-player or maybe 2-player experience if you had the controllers for it, became this group experience that you could get in just one whole box for up to 4 players. This was an experience for a group of friends or even the whole family. I remember when I got my drum set for the first time, my dad walked in and just asked me, hey, can I give that a try? And I said, sure, why not? And he sits down and he bangs out Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult on hard as if he was in Blue Oyster Cult and just never told me about it. I always loved the guitar and drum parts as a kid, although I was never very good at them at the ripe old age of 11. None of that mattered though, because it was just incredible to have the experience of feeling like you were in an actual band with your friends without having to put any of the work into it. It's the true American dream. Harmonix used their experience on Guitar Hero to create several quality of life changes to Rock Band so it could have a really strong start. All currently released guitar controllers at the time were completely compatible with Rock Band as long as you had the same platform. The story mode was like a multiplayer compatible world tour and you could make your own characters for it. I mean, at the time, this was brand new stuff. Admittedly though, some of those features weren't available on the PlayStation 2 version of the game I had, but if it says enough about the core gameplay, I got a lot out of that version anyway. Rock Band added some cool mechanics to the basic gameplay of Guitar Hero, like the bonuses that you get for your band being in sync, or the Big Rock ending, which is a huge ending bonus that you get at the end of the song where you can just freely jam out on the instruments until eventually someone misses the last note. Personally, I also prefer the more sleek and clean blue kind of interface that Rock Band had. It still has this rock and roll kind of aesthetic to it without being the really cartoonish and kind of punk rock aesthetic that Guitar Hero had. Rock Band 2 follows up in 2008 with some new ideas, but at the core, it's mostly the same game. There's a slight increase in visual fidelity, but if I'm honest, these games they didn't look the best anyway. The instruments you already bought were completely compatible with the new version of Rock Band, so you didn't have to shell out $200 for another box of goodies. All of your stuff was perfectly fine. Although Harmonix did do the nice thing of adding some nice improvements to the instruments based on feedback from fans, which is always a nice thing to hear. While the set list on Rock Band 1 is pretty solid and has some great memorable tracks on it, Rock Band 2's is so good. You've got Fleetwood Mac, The Offspring, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Duran Duran. There's really something for everybody on this set list. Between all the classic rock and alternative tracks on Rock Band 2 and Rock Band 1's soundtracks, these games are single-handedly responsible for most of my music taste even to today, and I'm just so thankful for that, because I was exposed to so much music through Rock Band. Though, after Rock Band 2, admittedly, I kind of fell away from music games. I guess that I was looking for cooler games, something like Call of Duty. I don't know, something where you kill people. I didn't even return to Rock Band fully until this year when my roommate and I pooled our instruments together just on a whim so we could have a bunch of nostalgia. And we dug up a PS3 and honestly, we had an incredible time with it, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. Now this is where Rock Band 3 comes in for me. Now Rock Band 3 came out in 2010, and I didn't play it until over 8 years after its release, and I have some thoughts on it. But first, let's look into the other reasons that maybe more people than just me began to veer away from the genre of guitar games around 2010, 2011. Now you might be thinking, but Jordan, Harmonix had 2 years to make a new game. Surely that must have been enough time to give people a breather and give people a new, fresh take on the game. Well, let me tell you what. Why don't we just take a second to go through all the offshoots and butt packs and spare instruments and all the other shit that they put out. That even confused me trying to just do research for this video. Rock Band Track Pack Volume 1, Classic Rock Track Pack, Country Track Pack, RBTP V2, The Beatles Rock Band, Lego Rock Band, Metal Track Pack, Country Track Pack 2, Green Day Rock Band Unplugged, and AC/DC Live, because everyone's favorite album is a live album. I know what you might be thinking. That sounds like a lot of Rock Band games. And you know what? You would be right. But what's that I hear? There's other guitar and music games trying to jump in on the craze. Guitar Hero 1, 2, 3, World Tour, 5, Warriors of Rock, Guitar Hero Encore Rocks the 80s, Band Hero, DJ Hero, Guitar Hero Aerosmith, Metallica, Van Halen, DJ Hero 2, Smash Hits, and then other games that aren't Guitar Hero games like Wii Music, Rock Revolution, Ultimate Band for the Wii, and who could forget the platinum-selling, bitch-stealing, Grammy Award-winning title, Band Fuse Rock Legends. That might be one of the worst things I've ever heard. My point is, there were a lot of music and rhythm games released during this generation, and the problem there is that few of them are really notable, and most of them are just trying to be quick, uninspired cash grabs. And by the time Rock Band 3 rolled around, most people were already tired of these kinds of titles and would become less enthused as time went on. Back to me, I found all this really disheartening because after I got to play Rock Band 3 for the first time, I realized, as much nostalgia as I have for the first two games, that Rock Band 3 is easily my favorite, and it might just be the best Rock Band game. Rock Band 3 is clearly where Harmonix decided to commit their flagship series into the vein of party games. While I could talk about Rock Band 3 and all of its successes and failures for probably a whole nother video, I'm just going to try to hit the high points here. Side note, yes, our band's name is Crisp, and yes, we have 28 million fans, and somehow we're still just an open. Also, you would think all of those Crisp fans would be tired of us only playing cover songs by now. Rock Band 3 is one of the fullest and most widely appealing soundtracks in any rhythm game I've ever heard. Just scrolling through these songs makes me want to go play the game again. The game is chock full of absolute bops, and most of them you can play with this sick-ass keytar, which is the new selling point and probably also part of the downfall of Rock Band 3. This thing is fun as heck though. And also, this version of Rock Band is the only one to support 7 players. Playing this version of the game with a room full of drunk people trying to avoid finals is one of my favorite recent memories, and everyone actually got a chance to play the game. Admittedly, 3 of those parts are vocals, but still having 4 instruments on the screen at a time and still allowing the other 3 people to play while you rotate is such a good dynamic. God, I know it's not on the game, but rocking out to Welcome to the Black Parade where you have a bunch of drunk people absolutely screaming it is so good, and yet so bad when you live in an apartment. It seems that even the core gameplay in Rock Band 3 was improved. The bass lines in most songs felt way more varied and interesting than they have in the past games. I actually preferred to play bass on some of them. Harmonix even added a bunch of quality of life improvements that people had been asking for forever in Rock Band 3, and yet it still wasn't enough to save this sinking ship. Sales were down by a large margin at this time, and Harmonix's commitment to a new style of gameplay for the series led to a lot of shipped but yet unsold peripherals. Harmonix was really interested in starting a new trend with actual instrumental instruction in their pro mode, where they wanted to use these really expensive peripherals and add-ons to teach you how to play the actual instruments through the game. And that made sense with something like the keytar because it comes with these full keys. But when you have to buy a whole new guitar, you have to buy cymbals, it just becomes a big hassle, and it's not something that casual fans are really going to jump on. Admittedly, the pro gameplay for both the drums and the keys that I have seems more fun and complex than the arcadey basic modes. While the pro modes got really good reviews from critics and superfans, as did the game overall, it's just not what anybody wanted from a Rock Band game. If it tells you anything about how well these instruments sold, I bought this keytar brand new this year for like $30. Harmonix's problem is they were segmenting their fan base when they did this. If you didn't have the newest set of drums, maybe their cymbals wouldn't work. If you wanted to access this whole part of the game that was completely walled off to you, you had to go out and shell out for a really, really disgusting guitar full of these like keys. It had like the same size string down at the bottom. It was real gross. Or you had to go out and buy a real guitar that could function as a controller. And with the overall oversaturation of the music game market, this was when Rock Band and Guitar Hero just began to fade from existence. So where are we now? Well, Rock Band 4 came out a few years ago after Harmonix had a bit of a nap, but I still forget that game exists. I know a lot of people online really like Rock Band 4, but for me, there's just no reason for me to pick it up. The set list isn't hugely interesting to me. I can get most of the songs I'm looking for on DLC anyway. Not only that, but Harmonix took away the ability to incorporate the soundtracks from the old games into the new Generation Edition, like a year after they announced that program. To have all the songs in one place would be really, really cool, but it's just not available anymore. And I know that's probably due to music licensing, and it's probably not their fault, but still it just really stings that you can't get that anymore. From reviews, it seems like after the game's hiatus, they decided to go back to basics, which is really good. They trimmed away all the fat from the pro modes and everything, but it didn't seem like they added enough to really make people want to jump onto the new game. It doesn't help that they massacred my boy. I mean, they just took away all support for the keytar. Oh. And nowadays, I can't find a used copy of Rock Band 4 for less than like $40 online. And try as you may, I cannot find any new instruments that are reasonably priced. Even the older instruments, like the first generation ones, are still becoming hard to find now. All the older games are a dime a dozen at used game stores. It just seems like the instruments and these newer titles are just really, really hard to find. I'm assuming they just didn't stock very many of them. Rock Band 4 got an expansion in 2016 that focused on the online multiplayer, everyone's favorite part of Rock Band, the online multiplayer. Like, I don't know what was going on at Harmonix, but they did not give people what they needed to get back into Rock Band. They just didn't really focus on what made Rock Band, you know? Yeah, but who knows, I'll probably end up buying this thing just to collect them all anyway. Maybe I'll review it sometime. Is that it? Oh yeah, and last on the list, Rock Band VR is a thing. I don't know if you knew that. I sure as hell didn't when I was doing research for this very video. I recommend you take a look at it online, but it seems lamer than it sounds, at least when you're watching people play. Critics say that it's really fun, but it doesn't really play like Rock Band, and you only really have the guitar. But from what I can tell, it seems maybe decent. It's not really for me. It is worth mentioning that Rock Band VR does take the group component out of Rock Band, but if it's any consolation to you, you get to rock out on stage with all these NPCs. The game is Oculus exclusive though, so if you happen to have just shelled out some of your money to the Zuck, let me know in the comments how that game is. And for the most part, that's Rock Band. I'm always gonna love this series. It's always gonna have a really special place in my heart. As much as I'd like a solid, concrete revival of this game one day, I may just have to accept that it's just sort of a touchstone in my generation's culture. I mean, everybody's heard of Rock Band the Guitar Hero. Everybody's gotten a chance to play it at some point that grew up in this era. At the end of the day, I'm glad I got to play it when I did, and it had a huge impact on me musically speaking. I never would have picked up a guitar without Rock Band, and I listened to so much music because of it. Why don't you tell me your favorite experience with Rock Band or just music games in general in the comments below. However you found this video, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again real soon.